Welcome back to a new episode of the Music Dictator Reviews. Sorry it's been a while, guys. I've been busy with school starting up since the last video I posted, and all this work that I've gotten kind of slowed me down. And well, safe to say I'm back, so no need to get mad at me. In today's episode, we're going to be reviewing an entire genre of music that, even though it doesn't necessarily have a name, I like to call soul punk. Personally, to me, soul punk is one of the few more underground genres that we have today still that really doesn't get as much recognition as it should in mainstream media. Now, some of y'all might be wondering, Dylan, what is exactly soul punk? Like, what would you define that as? Soul punk, to me at least, is a subgenre of punk rock as we know today, like bands like Minor Threat, Black Flag, stuff like that. It has the same sort of instrumentals, sort of fast, punchy, angry almost instrumentals, but the singer more than often not is singing about more emotional issues and with more of a singing voice instead of not necessarily a screaming voice, but more of a yelling or angry voice. Now, I know some of y'all might be thinking, Dylan, that sounds exactly like emo rock from the 90s, but I assure you, they're not the same thing. Where emo music is typically just sad sounding lyrics and singing, lyrics about desperation or depression or self loathing, while soul punk more often than not isn't necessarily about sad music. It can be happy, it can be uplifting, it can be political, it can be anything you want it to be as long as it has more of a raw emotion that can be all over the spectrum of emotions rather than sadness. Now, where I first thought of the name soul punk for the genre, it actually first came from another YouTuber that I've watched for as long as I've been on YouTube, pretty much, called The Rock Critic. He coined the term because the music has more of a soulful sound to it, but it can still tie its roots into punk rock. However, I do think somebody needs to come up with another name. Like The Rock Critic said, soul punk is actually an album by Patrick Stump that came out some years ago that was absolutely terrible in my opinion, and I hate it to be associated with newer Fall Out Boy in any way for that genre because they're two completely different things. Three bands that I would advise you if you want to get into this sort of soul punk thing that appeals to you, in the exact order that I would listen to for at least me. First, I would go Against Me, then I would go The Front Bottoms, and then last out of all that, I'd say the Gaslight Anthem. The reason why I say you should go with Against Me first is mainly due to the fact that they probably have the broadest range out of any of the bands I mentioned, because all of their albums typically have a different sort of sound that goes along with it or a different emotion. Like, for example, their album from 2002, Reinventing Axl Rose, is more of a politically charged album, while later in 2007, when New Wave came out, it was angrier. But then fast forward to 2014, I think it was, when Transgender Dysphoria Blues came out, and it was all moody and uplifting and about the lead singer Lauren Jane Grace's transition into a woman. And last album after that, Shapeshift With Me, is more of a sadder, moodier album that you typically understand from Laura Jane Grace's personal life transition from turning into a woman, and it's a lot sadder than the other albums that they've had. The other two bands, The Front Bottoms and the Gaslight Anthem, I gotta admit they're definitely the two more similar bands. Like, they pretty much accompany the same characteristics as the other has, except like they both have more moodier, more almost emo-ish kind of blends the lines of emo and soul punk together. But the one thing I gave at the Front Bottoms, their singer is definitely a more pop punkier, almost angrier sounding singer, while the Front Bottom singer is definitely more clean with his delivery, and it just sounds a lot smoother and nicer, which is probably a good thing if you're getting into punk in general. They'd be also a good transition band. Well, the reason why I love soul punk is just because of how raw and emotional it is all across the board of genres. I love, especially Against Me is my favorite soul punk band, as long as it's one of my favorite bands of all time. Just because of their range of emotion and how well that Lauren Jane Grace sings on all their albums and how the instruments back them up and how she's a great songwriter and all that sort of stuff that you sort of associate with Against Me is the reason why I love them so much. But like I said, typically I only listen to the front bottoms of the Gaslight Anthem when I'm sad. As you know, I'm gonna start putting Spotify playlists in my description soon enough. Not quite for this video, and you'll see one of them will probably be my Sad Boy playlist, and they'll be featured in that a bunch. Both of those bands will be. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, what I say goes, for me at least.